Welcome. Another edition, 93.1 CKSU-FM. You're listening to Two-Man Advantage. Carlos Verde, Mike Nellis with you as always. And Mike, a lot going on in the Ottawa sports scene as well as the CIS Canadian College sports scene as well with the championship weekend, basketball and hockey wrapping up last weekend. Lots going on. Of course, the Ottawa 67s kicking off their playoff run, hopefully a long one tonight down in Niagara against the Ice Dogs.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are suggesting that the Ottawa 67s, this might not be the year. And I think Jeff Brown, head coach and GM, is the first person to tell you that, but we'll find out in the first round against Niagara. Biggest news by far on campus and potentially across the entire Ottawa sports landscape. The Carleton Ravens men's basketball team are champions again. They win the CIS Final Eight in the that gold medal game and championship game, whatever you want to call it. I guess I'm still focused on the Arctic Winter Games here, so I call all the championship games gold medal games. But Carleton wins, and they've got a lot of gold in the last 14 years, 12 times in the last 14 years, national champions. So it is a big accomplishment for the Smart brothers, we can now say, not just Dave Smart.
So we're going to be joined now on the phone lines by Victor Finley, the Ryerson Rams men's hockey play-by-play voice. He was also in Halifax at the University Cup last weekend where the UNB Varsity Reds won their sixth title in program history, 3-1 over their Atlantic Conference rivals, the St. FX X-Men. And Victor, you were there in Halifax. What was that atmosphere like specifically for the final?
Oh, it was wonderful.
This is Victor Finley. Victor, always appreciate it, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, Carlos. Always great to talk with you and Mike.
Thanks, Vic.
And again, that's Vic Finley, the voice of the Ryerson Rams, and quite a voice it is. He's going on to bigger and better things, Mike.
I love talking to Vic, and he really knows his stuff when it comes to CIS hockey, and you could even throw a curveball in there about professional hockey versus what players should be doing, and he can go on a tangent for 7-8 minutes. So, yeah, no, Vic's great. I love him.
Well-connected as well within the player, coach, and agent community in the CIS. We'll step away on the other side. We've got Ottawa Sports Trivia coming up, our spring edition. I'll look to knock Mike off after losing the winter
It's the abbreviated version this time.
We got 10 minutes, about 5 questions each. And we'll be back on the other side. You're listening to Two-Man Advantage on 93.1 CKSU-FM in Ottawa.
You want to talk about a tough contract right now. You could go into the Ottawa Senators on General Fanager and find hard contracts. Here's one, Clark MacArthur. And you know what? It's really terrible what Clark MacArthur has gone through in the last 2 years with his head trauma issues. He's a poster boy of what is wrong with the NHL trying to sweep this kind of stuff under the rug, because he did try to play through it for a lot of his career.
The bottom six, let's just take a look at the Chicago Blackhawks, all right, Mike? And Chicago Blackhawks have some young players that they've brought up. Teuvo Teravainen, I believe he's still on his ELC, $1.3 million cap hit. Richard Panik's another guy. Thomas Fleischmann, they're only paying $177 for him this year because they picked him up. It's smart money management. Welcome back. Two-Man Advantage here. Second segment of our hour-long Hockey Holiday Special. Carlos Verde, Mike Nellis, and Dan Deschênes with you here.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. We'll pump out some Frank Sinatra towards the end of the show. But big injury. We mentioned it a little bit when we touched on Team Sweden, but Sebastian Aho, just a huge loss for the Tre Kroner this year. I mean, you look at it, he was their top defenseman. He was going to be an all-situations guy, takes a deflection, ends up fracturing his larynx, which just sounds incredibly painful. I have to imagine it was difficult for him to breathe in that wild pre-tournament game against Canada. The Canadians pulled out the 7-6 win. But guys, how much does this Sebastian Aho injury affect Team Sweden?
Yeah, those fins are really going to hurt from that. It's the other Aho. Okay. So yeah, sorry, we're out of Sebastian Aho jokes by now.
Bad joke.
He was the team captain, and he's out. You lose your captain if you're any team, regardless of whether you're a junior team or not, like a world junior team or a club team in the regular season. You're going to hurt from that. And they're the best.
Always gets
they're
me.
The best.
Moving on. Here's what I like, though, about the McDonald versus Blackwood scenario is that Canada has two legitimately difficult games in the group stage. Most years, they only have one with the U.S. Let's be honest. Whenever they host, they've got the Czechs, probably blow them out 6-7-0, maybe Slovakia, maybe Denmark, whoever just came up from Div 1A. This year, right away, Mason McDonald's going to face the States. If he doesn't do well, he still has one more game against Denmark.
Unless they go with Montembeau.
That's unlikely.
But I really doubt that, yeah.
But he has a chance against Denmark to make a 15-16 save shutout, maybe give up one goal, little confidence booster. Then you get a trickier game in Switzerland, a team that obviously has a lot of forwards that can score, right? You look at Rod and company, even Siegenthaler on the back end, big body. And then you finish off with Sweden, and that's a game where if you really want to throw Mackenzie Blackwood into the fire and see what he's got after 8 games off, 8-game suspension, you put him in against the Swedes. If he doesn't do well, you can fall back on Mason McDonald because he's already played 3 games in the tournament and have him for the knockout round fresh. So I think that the schedule is actually quite favorable, aside from Canada playing on the hybrid ice.
And I think the hybrid ice as well, to get back to that, it's an adjustment to go from the North American size ice at 85 feet wide. You go into the rink they're playing at for the preliminary round, and it's 93. And then you move into the Helsinki or the Hartwell Arena, and it's 100 feet wide. So it's a bit of an adjustment each time. But I think what people don't realize as well is that it's not just an adjustment with the width of the ice, but there's more space behind the net, and the neutral zone is bigger. So the shots from the point are coming in at different angles, and they're a lot closer to the net. So that's a big adjustment too for goalies. So it's a good thing Canada was able to play on that hybrid ice yesterday in that exhibition game.
There's a lot of space between the top of the circles and the blue line too. There's extra space there. Just everything is stretched out in the ice, and that gives the speedy guys a lot more room to work with the puck in the
Spengler Cup champion and World Junior champion. Against all odds, I'm going to pick the Russians. They've got the goaltending, they've got the defense,
they've got the heart, they've got the CHL grit.
A lot of guys out of Saskatchewan, you know. they're playing their trade in Moose Jaw. They're real Flin Flon type team, you know. And we're going to wrap up quickly, Dan. You got 2 minutes here. Draft eligible players, putting you on the spot.
Draft eligibles. All right. Well, we've got 14.
It's your specialty.
Yeah, my specialty there.
Quick rundown.
We've got 14 of them in our latest top 100.
Storyline to keep an eye on as well. If Austin Matthews does well and makes the transition to the NHL, you got to figure more junior players are going to look at earning a pro salary in their draft eligible year overseas. That's going to be an interesting precedent if he can set it. This tournament will go a long way to deciding his future. That's been a wrap for the Holiday Hockey special here on Two Man Advantage. Here's Frank Sinatra with Come Fly With Me. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and as always, thanks to Future Considerations as Dan Deschênes for joining us. Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Two Man Advantage here on 93.1 CKCU FM in the nation's capital. Carlos Verde co-hosting today with my good friend Michael Nellis and a special guest in studio today, Ottawa Sun sports writer Chris Hoffley. Chris, great to have you and thanks for joining us.
Good to be here, guys. I like the tunes to open the show. That's the best musical intro I think I've been part of on a radio program.
We've got a lot to talk about today. Tons going on in the Ottawa sports landscape. I want to start right off the hop with the Ottawa 67, starting their season tonight, 2015-16 campaign under second-year head coach Jeff Brown. They're starting in Peterborough tonight, and we'll start with Mike. They're coming off of a really nice year last year where I think a lot of people would agree that they overachieved under Jeff Brown. What are you expecting from Brown 67s in his second year behind the bench?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it overachieving, but I would say that it was a huge upgrade over what they've seen in the last couple of seasons. And I don't think that anybody really can dispute that. Gaining home ice advantage and
Welcome back, Two-Man Advantage here on the campus of Carleton University, and we got a special treat now for the second half hour of our show. We've got Carleton Ravens football head coach Steve Sumara joining us now on the phone. Steve, how you doing?
Not too bad at all. How are you?
Not too bad. Thanks for joining us. Big game down in Western this weekend on Saturday. It's going to be Western's homecoming. And Mike, do you want to ask the first question?
Well, yeah, sure. And basically, you remember last week, obviously, Steve, it was a huge atmosphere here at Carleton for homecoming. Having that crowd behind you is one thing. Now you move into Western, it's that homecoming atmosphere on the other side with the packed stadium, everybody's cheering for the Mustangs. How do you combat that extra emotion that is really put into a football game like that?
Well, you're right. That's why they call it home field advantage. Let's be blunt, and it's definitely an advantage. How are we going to use it to our advantage? Well, I think the biggest thing is working our psychological mindset of saying, hey, what would be better than beating a team in their own homecoming? That's kind of how we're looking at it. It's a simple us against the world thing.
Now, Steve, nobody else in the OUA really can rival Western's offensive punch. They're a deserved 4-0 so far, and Greg Marshall's team has the best quarterback in the nation in Will Finch. He's got 1,300 yards in 4 games, and the best running back in the CIS as well, Alex Taylor, averaging 12.5 per carry. How do you combat such a versatile offense?
Well, you kind of have to stop one component of it, or I'm not sure if you can stop it the way it's going right now, but you got to slow it down and force them to become a little bit more one-dimensional. Again, me telling you on the phone what it needs to be done and us actually executing it are two different things for sure. But, all we can control is what we can do on every play. And that's been our approach all week. It doesn't matter who we're playing. We have to kind of win the play. And if we do enough of that, then we got a chance.